Cuba has always been a very tough place to live. All people know Cuba is a communist country, but the communism in Cuba has impacted our country tremendously. There are lack of most basic things, lack of food, lack of medications, lack of freedom, lack of hope. Our country is a hopeless country. This is what communism means in Cuba. A pair of shoes in Cuba is $30. It's almost a half of my salary in Cuba. Only one pair of shoes. I think, despite of the situation that is now in Cuba, that the best for Cuban churches is still to come. The same God we have here is the same God they have there.
I was the first Christian in my family. I never went to a church, but I was invited to church when I was 14 years old, and that changed my life completely. Right after I converted, I had this desire to serve the Lord with all my life. I didn't know exactly what I would be doing, but I knew I had the desire to give all my life, all my time to serve the Lord. Instead of going to university, I went straight to the seminary and started serving the Lord as a pastor. Maybe late 2009, there were two ministers of Northwest visiting several churches in Cuba looking for opportunities to partner with a church in Cuba. I met Pastor Neil and I extended an invitation to come to Pinar, and he visited. From that moment on, we've had a wonderful relationship with him personally and with group from Northwest. For me personally, that has been a tremendous blessing. But then one day I received the nomination to be the president of Havana Baptist Theological Seminary. In that moment, I reminded one verse that we always quoted, that prayer of the harvest. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. I was aware that the future of the church in Cuba was truly connected to the leaders. And I realized that if we want to have healthy churches, we need to have healthy leaders. It was amazing to see how God provided during those 4 years at the seminary. Despite very challenging economic situations, the Lord provided partners to help the seminary to survive.
My name is Michael Ramsey. I've been at Northwest Bible Church for 16 years. My first exposure to Cuba was to go in 2018 for a pastor's conference in Cienfuegos. What I realized was, even though culturally, economically, they are so different than us, we are so similar with them with regards to the fact that we are passionate about our love for Jesus. They may not have all of the material wealth that we have here in America, but every Cuban you meet that's on fire for Jesus, you see it in their eyes. It was radically transformative to me. And I don't know that I can explain it other than the Holy Spirit awoke a gift in me that I didn't know was there by having me spend time with my brothers and sisters in Cuba. On my third trip to Cuba in February of 2019, Barbaro Marrero, the president of the Havana Baptist Seminary, had invited a team from Northwest Bible Church to come alongside 10 seminary students that were pastors that he saw as future leaders in the Cuban church. There was an incredible ministry they already were involved in spread across the island, and we could see the potential right away for what God could do to change the church in Cuba and transform the ministry there through these guys.
It has been good to see how committed they are to serve the Lord.
Some of these guys are driving 8 hours each week just to be there in seminary. As soon as I met these 10 pastors, I was overwhelmed with their dedication and commitment to the gospel.
The 10 pastors were about to graduate. They were ready to pastor in churches all around Cuba as ordained pastor. They had the expectation to have Neil and the people from Northwest attending their graduation. But COVID-19 changed everything.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking when we realized that given the circumstances, we would not be able to celebrate with them in person when they graduated. We knew how hard they had worked for that moment. We had looked forward with anticipation to being there, to seeing it, to celebrating with their families. And it was really difficult when we had to make the choice and it became final that we weren't going. The year those pastors graduated from seminary, we had scheduled to meet with them 3 times that year. But because of the pandemic, we were not able to meet with them for more than 2 years.
After COVID, things in Cuba went from bad to worse. The scarcity of products was a tremendous challenge. People had to be in waiting lines for a long time to get very basic items, food. Some of the students, they were having classes through WhatsApp, and some of them said, I'm in the class while I'm in the waiting line to get chicken or buying oil or detergent or something like that. And for many years, people thought it's going to improve soon. That's not the case. And I think that's the feeling of most of the people after the pandemic. So they are willing to risk their lives because their only hope is coming to the U.S.
It's the largest exodus of the population of Cuba that they've experienced. We're hearing that in some areas up to maybe 1/3 of the people are gone. We hear story after story of, we have 7 deacons at our church and 6 of them have left. I've only got 1 left to help me.
Pastors are leaving. Right now, we have 580 churches in the convention and only 220 pastors. If we keep losing pastors, it's going to hurt the work in Cuba. I once again remember that verse. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few.
These pastors that have come alongside us and we've come alongside, they're choosing to stay behind when 12, 14, 16 family members are choosing to come to America.
For me, it's very easy to understand why people want to leave. It's more difficult to understand why people would like to stay. Those churches cannot pay them what they need to survive. But in spite of that, they are serving the Lord with joy. And they have developed a very strong relationship among themselves and also with Northwest Bible Church.
Without support from churches like Northwest Bible, these pastors would not be able to stay in ministry in Cuba. What will be exciting for us to watch, even from a distance, is how these churches grow generationally from the seeds that we've planted through this investment, this partnership between Northwest and the churches in Cuba. Even now, they're talking about where this will go in 5, 10, 25 years, how they will live out a life of faithfully serving as a pastor and what they will leave to the next generation of the Cuban church.
I really think that Northwest Bible have a huge role to play for the future of the work in Cuba, because the partnership we have with Northwest Bible Church, we are having thousands of conversations about Jesus in Cuba.